all those moments will be lost in time.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about something that I didn't really think I'd be talking about because I like spending most of my time forgetting the fact that the Paul brothers exist. Anyway, I was made aware of the Casey Neistat interview, so I decided to watch it. And my friend Ellie Jaden actually made a video about this, so I'll link that down below, and we have a lot of similar thoughts on this. First and foremost, my distaste for Logan Paul. I think anyone who has been on my channel or has watched a couple of my videos, they'll know that automatically that is not my type of content. That is not the type of person I support. I don't like the vapidness and the sensationalism behind his channel. I think it's uninteresting and honestly insulting to most people's intelligence. But let's talk about the interview. So, believe it or not, as much as I do not like Logan Paul, I would actually have a little bit more faith in the world if he all of a sudden grew up, if he all of a sudden took responsibility and actually changed. That would make me feel better, because if he can change, then anyone can, because honestly, at this point, he seems so far gone from reality that a change would be a miracle. I want to talk about what bothered me in this interview, and I could make a 6-hour video about what bothered me in that interview, but I'm gonna try and just keep it short. So if you didn't see the interview, it was pretty long, and most of it focused on the documentary that they're doing on Logan Paul, or that he's doing on himself. Interesting, isn't it? Anyway, I think Casey did a great job, and he was really asking questions that were hard to answer, and he was asking questions I wanted him to ask. And what really disappointed me was Logan, obviously. You know when you talk to someone and you ask them a question that they clearly don't know how to answer or don't want to answer, and so they throw out all these words and you're just like, so? And I feel like that's what most of Logan's answers were like. It was just like starting a sentence and not coming to a conclusion of that sentence. It'd be like you asking me, hey, so what do you think about Logan Paul? And I'd be like,
well, you know, I think that, so sometimes, anyway, yeah.
How do you characterize it? Is the video about how you've learned to better empathize with others, or is the video about making it easier for people to sympathize with you?
I don't think people should, can, or will sympathize with me. Let's be honest, Casey, like, what I did, there's no distracting people. There's no, well, here's what I tried to do, and this is why it's okay. There's none of that. It's an unbiased, objective story that captures how something like that can happen, and what went wrong in my life that I thought that was a good idea.
is there an answer there? No. And there was no answer in the Logan Paul situation either, and he just kept saying the same things like a broken fucking record of, I'm changed, and I did a suicide PSA. And the suicide PSA, let's all be honest for a second, that was damage control. That was damage control, because if you really wanted to make a suicide PSA, why wouldn't you have made it before? Why wouldn't you have waited at least a couple months after the scandal so it just didn't seem like a Save Logan Paul PSA instead of a suicide PSA? And then if you really cared about suicide and mental health and all of that, why would you go on and talk to Casey and say that it was the most viewed PSA? Like, why would you say that when you're trying to really force this idea down our throats that you've changed?
Are you a different person now than you were?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, okay,
Absolutely.
so then let me follow that up by, because I've heard you say that.
Yeah.
How have you demonstrated that? How have you not just said, but what have you done to demonstrate that? And I'd go even sharper in saying that, like, a lot of your content, I think the suicide video that you came out with, your first video back,
Yeah.
really demonstrated what your channel's capable of in talking about something bigger than just Logan Paul. Mm-hmm. But there hasn't been much since then. There hasn't been much that's demonstrated you're a different person. You talked about positivity and being a different person and changing the structure of the channel, and then it was days later you're shooting a dead mouse. So what have you done to demonstrate you've changed as a person?
The rat was that was me becoming obsessed with the idea of being a villain. When the whole world hates you, I made the conscious decision, I'm gonna be the guy they think I am, and I essentially became the architect of my own destruction because I wanted to be who they thought. I thought I might as well adopt this. Screw it. And
wasn't that a direct contradiction to everything you had just put out about how you're changing and how you're a different person?
Yeah,
these videos were inside of a week.
Yeah, I know, but to me, while I can still be a good person, I'm also possibly am, the guy who takes things to extremes. That's who I am. That's the brand of Logan Paul. It's the fastest, the biggest, the best, the greatest. And
right, and it's that led you to the, that's how you started this interview.
Exactly. That's everything is to the extreme, right? So if I can make content, and I have been for 4 years, making people laugh, smile, believe in themselves, making them believe that they can accomplish their goals even if they're from a small town in Ohio. Because I made these mistakes, yes, I'm going to demonstrate more empathy and more compassion, but at the same time, I still have my brand.
So, and even in the documentary, Casey says, like some kind of redemption has to happen for this documentary to happen, right? Because it's supposed to be a redemption story or whatever. Story being a key word here, not reality. But anyway. And even Logan Paul said, oh, well, it hasn't happened yet. And I was like...
Would you characterize this as a redemption story?
It's an attempted redemption story, is what it is. Are we still talking about the doc?
Yeah, the doc.
That's what it is. That's what, again... Will I come back? I say yes. That's what the doc is about. That's what the story is.
Is it not? How long has it been since the 7 months, 6 months?
Yeah.
Is it not premature? Like, before you can tell a redemption story, there has to be an act of redemption.
True.
So what is that? What is the act of redemption been for Logan Paul?
It's not been done yet. That's what the doc is about. And again, the whole idea of the Jesus Christ,
Dude, there's a Harley dealership.
This is crazy.
It's fine.
The whole idea of the doc is we don't have plans for it. We don't plan on profiting off it. If for whatever,
are you gonna monetize it?
I don't know, because what we want to do, I've told stories my whole life through a lens, as have you. So the thought process is, why let someone else make that story? Because someone's going to want to make that story. People have wanted to make that story. Why let someone else do it when I could just do it myself? And I know that if we do decide to monetize it, 100% of the proceeds will go to some sort of suicide prevention awareness program. Because that's essentially what this whole thing is about.
So you mean to tell me that you're filming a documentary that you claim is unbiased, yet you're the one filming it, so it's automatically biased, about a redemption story, yet your redemption hasn't really happened yet. So what's the documentary gonna do? It's just gonna be you sitting in front of a camera being like, hey guys, I don't know if I told you, but I've changed. I'm vegan now. I've changed. Merch link in bio. Like, what the fuck are you even gonna talk about in this documentary? And then Casey asked a question, which I think, again, was a really good one, saying like, are you gonna make yourself out to be the victim? Because it kind of seems like that's what you're doing. And that was totally what he was doing. As much as he said, oh no, I don't wanna be a victim. I don't wanna, well... But you're kind of acting like one. Because if you repeat over and over in an interview saying, oh, the most hated man in the world, and I'm just like, dude, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're not the most hated man in the world. You never were, because you're not that big of a deal. You're a big deal in the YouTube universe, but the most hated man in the world, talk about delusions and megalomania. Like, just to think that the world cares about you enough. No, journalists for a couple of days all over the world did publish articles about you because what you did was disgusting, deplorable, and plenty of other words that I'm not gonna say. However, that doesn't make you the most hated man in the world, but the fact that he said that not only shows that he does have this little victim complex, but aside from that, he still thinks of himself as that important. And just so you know, if we really had to say who the most hated man in the world was, I'd say Hitler would probably be at the top of that list. I don't think you're at Hitler levels, so let's take it down a notch with your self-importance, thank you. As much as I want to have empathy for Logan Paul, his behavior stops me from ever feeling just an ounce of it for the simple reason that there is never anything that comes off as raw or genuine. Never. I look at him and I see a brand, and he even mentions his brand multiple times, and I'm like, this is what you're doing right now. You're not trying to redeem yourself. You're not trying to be a good person. You're trying to save your brand, your moneymaker, okay? This is not about you trying to be a better person, because being a better person doesn't have to be broadcasted to the world. You can come back to YouTube and your actions will demonstrate that you were a better person. You don't have to make a documentary. That's unneeded, you know, like you can choose to do it, but the only way you're gonna prove to me and other people who are as skeptical as I am of you, and as cynical, by the way, is by acting. Your words mean jack shit. And even Casey touched on this. In the end, intent doesn't matter. It's the outcome. As much as you might have had all these positive intentions, those don't really matter in the end. So this is the last thing I wanted to bring up. There's a debate almost in that interview about being culturally insensitive versus being insensitive. And Logan had the audacity to say that this is the thing that bothered him the most because he was being called culturally insensitive. And he's like, there's a difference between culturally insensitive and just insensitive. And he was arguing that he was just insensitive. So like insensitive in all ways. And I'm like, how is that better than just being insensitive in one way? Like, I don't understand why you'd prefer that and why you'd why you'd really want to stop and focus on that in an interview. How fucking stupid.
I think being perceived as culturally insensitive, as far as the outfits go, they were on sale at a store right next to the temple that we were at for tourists. Do we not buy the outfits? I don't know. They're on sale there. And then deeper, I mean, we could dive into the specifics of what happened. There's a difference between culturally insensitive and insensitive. The brand that I was at the time was just all around insensitive. And that's the person who I am no longer trying to become and will no longer represent on the vlogs.
And you think that has been the case with your content since that moment till now? Or is this looking ahead?
Okay, so this is looking ahead, yes, but because you're right, it's like I said those things and then you go and tase a dead rat. What the fuck? What happened? Did you just contradict everything? And the answer is, again, like you said, yes, that's why it's hard for me, because how many times can you say one thing and then try to be a better person? But truly now it's like, I'm vegan now.
But anyway, he was trying to say that what happened at the suicide forest, him dressing up in a traditional getup, him dressing up as a Pokemon and running like in the middle of traffic and throwing that ball saying I pick you or something, that was not culturally insensitive according to him. And as much as I'm not about cultural appropriation and stuff like that, if you've been watching me for a while, you know my stance on that. There is such a thing as being a dick and being a dick about a certain culture, and that's kind of what he was doing, because it's just ridiculous how he was going around and making fun of it, you know? So when people talk about cultural appropriation, maybe they should think about Logan Paul being dressed up in the traditional getup and then trying to act out these stereotypes or just being flat out rude. And the fact that he focused on this so much just made me think about how focused he is on not bettering himself, but clearing his name. Because if you just want to better yourself, you wouldn't stop to argue with someone over whether it was culturally insensitive or generally insensitive. You can just say, yeah, I was insensitive, I fucked up. Done. Finish finish it there? Why do you need to go forward and claim that something that you did in the past is actually okay because your intent was X and Y? This goes back to intent. It doesn't matter, because how you come off to the viewer in the end is what determines how people think of you. It's the same for me and any other person on YouTube, except that you had millions watching you and you fucked up worse than any other YouTuber I can think of off the top of my head. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry if this rant was a little much, but honestly, I just hate seeing people trying to act like they're bettering themselves when they're not, because I do genuinely think that there's so many people on YouTube that are trying to better themselves and that aren't making this whole show about it, whereas he really needs to protect his brand under the guise of bettering himself. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and let's get right into the fan art.